Welcome, quilters! Today I'd like to talk to you about vinyl design grids. I have two design grids that I like to use when I'm creating designs because, I'm not one of those people who can look at a template and tell you what it's going to create. So I like to play with these to create my designs. I have a whole cloth grid, I'll show that one a little bit later, and a block grid. They come with their own little quilt clips, which are great for holding them together. These also work great on wrapping paper and pantographs and all kinds of things. But this is a 4-point grid, so you see there are 1, 2, 3, 4 points. This is a 6-point grid, which is great for your blocks that have equilateral triangles in them. And this is an 8-point grid. So let's start and let's see how this is going to work. So there's 3 ways you can use the grids. I like to use them for creating designs. I like to use them for, once I have the design created, previewing it on a quilt because, sometimes I can create really great designs and then I get them to the quilt and not so much. And then I also like to use them for practicing. So the first thing you will see is each of these grids. This is the 6-point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you have an 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch, and 14-inch square. When you're using the design grids, I use Expo dry erase pens. I use the black ones. If you use the bold colored ones, you might find that they like to leave color on there just like on a whiteboard. So the dry erase pens work great. The ultrafine or the fine, those are the 2 I prefer. So let's take a tool. This one is my pointed leaf oval number 2. Now let's talk about if we're going to play with the templates. Are we going to be practicing as if we're on a machine, or are we going to draw the design exactly? So this is a tube template tester. It is going to take the place of my foot. And now when I do my drawing, I am going to get my stitch line versus if I drew directly against my template, that is not where my stitch line would be, that is where my stitch line would be. So these are called tube template testers and they imitate your foot. They work the same way the template testers that we give out at the shows when you buy templates. You can put an automatic pencil or an ultraline fine line Sharpie in the middle and play on paper. Where your pencil line is, that's where your stitching line will be. So using the tube template tester, let's create a design. I am going to go start in the middle and line up my tool. And this is my stitch path. We're going to go completely around and go back to the center. Now let's do all 6 of these. All right, so now we have completed the design. Well, the first thing I'm noticing is on this straight up and down, I am not staying inside of the 10-inch square. So this could be a problem if my block is only 10 inches. So now I have some options. Because I've done this on a design grid, I can erase these lines and test out something else. Maybe using a different size will work. So now let's try a different size here. I'll switch down to a lower size and put them in. So, well, it's definitely inside the 10-inch block, but I'm not sure I think the design is going to work. It looks a lot more rectangular. So now let's try an 8-point grid instead. Maybe that would work better. So let's get 8-point out. So now we have an 8-point grid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's your crosshairs and your diagonals. All right, so now if I want to stay inside that 10-inch square, we already know the big one won't do it. It goes outside the 12-inch. So let's try putting a small one in here. And then let's go to the big one. So we're going to put the larger design on each of the 45-degree lines, and on each of the 90, we're going to put the smaller pointed leaf. And now I have a design that sits from within the 10-inch. So now I can take my design and go to my quilt and say, does it work there? So these work really great for testing out ideas, for trying out designs, figuring out how you're going to move your tool, how you're going to place your hands. The other way I like to use the vinyl grids is when I'm trying out different ideas that maybe I don't want to do all the stitching. And I start with the large design, the original design, but maybe I don't want all that stitching in the middle. So with the dry erase pens, I can come along and I can erase the lines that I don't want. And let's face it, it's much easier than trying to frog your quilt. So I'm going to erase those lines, and now I can take my tool and I can mark where my start and stop points are. And looky right there, I've got a mark there that'll do it. If I didn't have a mark, I could take a Sharpie or a piece of tape and simply mark where I wanted to stop. And check out the other side, and voila, there's where I'm going to stop. This is a really great way to try out different designs. Let's look at the whole cloth before I show you some more designs. So the whole cloth grid is a larger piece entirely. This is great for large medallion designs, working on border designs. Can be used for a lot of different applications. And when you get the templates, if you run your hand over the vinyl grids on both sides, you can actually feel which side is printed, because one side is completely smooth and the other side you can feel the lines. It does work better if you put the printed side down. So you can see this is a much larger design, much like you see behind me. I like to use it for figuring out the corner, how to turn a corner with a design. I like to use it for figuring out border designs. So for that, I'm going to use my set of circles. And as you know from my instructions, circles are great for a wide variety of border designs. So what I'm going to do here is choose this line of template. Let's assume that I have a 2-inch border. So I might come in here and mark that I'm working within a 2-inch border. And I want my design to actually touch the border. So I'm going to set the template in here, mark where my seam line is, and create the border design. Slide my template, line it back up. All right, I'm going to go up here. I'm going to lock my stitch there. I'm going to go to the other side, line it up on the opposite seam. And voila, is that the diamond and oval pattern I want? Do I want the ovals to be wider? Do I want the diamonds to be bigger? I can test out the different sizes until I get the design that I want for my quilt. So this is great for previewing, for creating, for working out the pathway that you're going to follow. Once you have designs that you like, and as many of you who have been in my booth has seen this design, this one I hand stitched. And so in order to do that, I did put it out on a piece of paper. It's a design I like, so I want to keep it for all time. So what I did then was put my vinyl grid onto a light board. Although this one is pretty light, you could do it just like on here. And I recreated my design on the paper. For the larger pieces, I can use a sliding glass door. And this is the piece that will eventually be done on a complete black piece, so you can see the design. So on this one, I had to put everything up on a sliding glass door because my light table wasn't that big. So as you can see, the design grids are really great for those of us who cannot take a template and say that's what it will do. You can play with it, you can create designs that are unique to you, you can practice with the templates, you can use them for finding your pathway. Thank you and enjoy quilting.